Hi, so I'm continuing to work on the pieces for my toe kick under the kitchen countertop, the kitchen counter. One of the things that I recommend doing, this is something taught to me, is to make sure, at least at the very beginning, before I do any measuring, that I'm working with a nice straight edge. So that's all I'm doing on this piece of wood. The first step, I'm just going to cut this edge off, make sure it is straight, and then cut my two pieces from that, because if this was at an angle and I need a certain length and I went by the shorter part, I might end up cutting everything too short and make it unusable. So I'm just going to trim off just a little bit. Make sure it's straight. Alright, that'll give me a good starting point. Alright, so the next thing that I will need to do, that I've already done on my first piece, is to either use the table saw or the planer to get all these edges smooth and even, because I will be gluing three pieces together. If they're a little bit off, I'll probably still have to use clamps to hold them together, and then once that glue is dried, that'll be my next toe kick. So I'm going to try and do this on the planer first, so that I can create as little gap in here as possible. Alright, because of the nature of these pallets, even though there might be a very, very, very small gap, I can easily compensate when I glue this by using these clamps up here. I've already done this once, they'll do a really good job. I could spend a lot of time getting this perfectly smooth, and if it was for a very visible area, then I would definitely need to do something like that. However, this will be going underneath, and once I glue the three pieces together, you don't see the third one yet, the gaps will be sealed, and this will actually be up underneath like this, so there isn't going to be any danger of this splitting or coming apart. I know, you're probably asking yourself, what in the world is he doing with all these clamps? Well, I'm trying to work with wood. Quite honestly, I don't have the money to buy the perfect flat wood that's already finished. This is reclaimed pallet wood, so it's twisted, warped, and bent, and whatever you want to call it. Now, in order to get this at least as close to being flush as possible, again, I will have to sand it. I had to use a whole bunch of clamps and wood to get this nice and flat and even, because one of these was definitely warped. Now, once this glue sets, it's not going anywhere, and I will be able to run it lightly through a planer and then sand this front part down, and it'll be nice and smooth for the toe kick. So I will have to let this dry. all of this wood was from reclaimed pallets that were outside. Now they're warped, they're twisted, but they are usable in that I've got the right tools that my dad had in my cellar. So I'm going to show you what I did to and why this is why this step was like this. Now the first thing I did on these pieces was to plane them down to a smooth finish. The next thing I had to do was using this planer right here. The next thing I did, I guess that's called a joiner. I'm not sure why, because it doesn't actually physically join everything, but that's what everybody calls it. I used this to do a little more straightening the edges of the shorter pieces. Now the longer pieces, I used this table saw and I went back and forth to try and get as straight an edge as I possibly could. Now the other issue was the warping going this way. Now these toe kicks are going to be going underneath my bus, so you really won't notice if it's slightly off, but what I ended up having to do is after I put these clamps all this way to glue these three pieces to get the height I needed, these were going up and down a little bit, so I used all these clamps, extra pieces of wood, to flatten all this out. Now in the end, what I will still need to do is probably run it through this planer a little bit more and then take a sander to smooth it out, which is what I did with this piece here. I'm sorry, this actually is going to go this is going to the right side, which is what I end up doing with this piece here, and this came out really smooth. There's one little patch here and there, but it should be all right. So I had to do some makeshift things on my toe kicks. Now as you saw in the previous video, I had everything clamped up because a lot of stuff was warped and twisted. This particular piece, it was still so warped that this end here spread back out, even the glue didn't hold. So what I had to do was use one of these brackets, and this is going to hold it and keep it in place. Alright, so the toe kick is pretty close to being done. I kind of goofed on my design of the bus. I can't get to and behind to put these pocket hole screws and stuff in, so I'll have to get some wood putty. I will fill those in and restain it. It'll look a little bit different. That's okay. But the along the length now is the toe kick, which also I have pets. They won't be getting in here. There's a couple little things I need to make something stain it, and then down at the other end, let's go down there. Alright, that corner, see this a little bit better. That corner, I'll put a piece in, well, there you go. I'll put a piece in there to make that look a little bit nicer. But there's I think you can see underneath here, all along there.